Okay, I'm going to be honest with you. Something massive is happening right now, and I genuinely feel like most people have absolutely no idea how significant this moment actually is. Today, Monday, March 30th, we are hitting one of the most emotionally charged, most personally powerful astrological alignments of the entire year. It's called the Moon conjunct Mars at 15 degrees Cancer. And if you've been carrying something heavy lately, a wound you can't name, a need you keep pushing down, a rage that lives just underneath the surface, this is the moment that cracks it all open. And I don't say that to scare you. I say it because I genuinely believe you need to hear this right now. This isn't just another transit quietly passing through your chart. This is a collision happening inside your chest. The moon, your deepest emotional body, your instincts, your sense of home and belonging and safety, is meeting Mars, raw drive, anger, hunger, action, at an exact degree in the sign that rules all of those things, at 15 degrees Cancer, right now, today. But here's what I need you to understand before we go any further. There's one specific experience that's been building in people over the past few days that almost nobody is connecting to this alignment. And if you've been feeling it, stay with me. There's a very real reason it's been happening, and I'm going to break it all down as we go. But first, I need to explain why today is so completely different from a normal transit day. Because to understand what this energy is actually doing to you, you need to understand what Cancer at its core really means. And trust me, once you feel the full weight of this picture, everything that's been emotionally surging or quietly suppressing inside you is going to make complete sense. It all starts with what Cancer actually rules, and why it hits deeper than almost anything else in the zodiac. Cancer is not a soft sign. I know that's how it gets treated. People talk about it in terms of sensitivity and nurturing and home-cooked meals and emotional availability. And yes, all of that is real. But that is only the surface layer. Cancer at its absolute core is about survival. It's about the primal, unfiltered need to protect what you love, to feel safe in your own body, to belong somewhere, not just physically, but emotionally, deeply, without condition. The moon rules Cancer. This is the moon's home sign, which means that when the moon is moving through Cancer, it is operating at full, unrestricted power. Every emotion is amplified. Every instinct is sharpened. Every single need you've been intellectualizing, rationalizing, packaging into something manageable, it rises to the surface. You feel it in your body before your brain even has words for it. And today, right now, Mars is sitting directly on top of the moon at exactly 15 degrees Cancer. Mars is the planet of action, aggression, desire, and drive. It does not wait. It does not ask permission. It does not pause to consider whether this is a convenient time. It moves. It pushes. It fights for what it wants. And when Mars and the moon collide, in Cancer of all places, it does not produce gentle emotional processing or quiet journaling insights. It produces eruption, a surge of feeling so concentrated, so directional, so impossible to ignore, that it demands a response. It's the moment where everything you've been holding in, the grief, the hunger, the love you haven't said out loud, the slow-burning anger at being unseen or unmet, it can no longer stay quiet. And if you've been on edge today, if something small pushed you too far, if you woke up feeling raw and couldn't fully explain why, if your chest has felt tight since this morning, that is not a personal failing. That is this transit moving through you right now. But here's what I really want you to sit with. And this is the piece I think most people completely miss when they talk about this kind of alignment. There is one very specific experience that's been rippling through people over the past several days, something subtle, something they haven't quite been able to name. I want you to see if this lands for you. Over the last few days, you may have noticed a kind of pulling sensation, like something unfinished is quietly demanding your attention, a relationship you haven't been fully honest about, a boundary you keep meaning to set and then don't, a deep need for closeness, for genuine belonging, for someone to actually see you, that you've been softly denying yourself because it feels too exposed to ask for directly. Maybe you've noticed yourself overreacting to something small and then feeling confused about where that reaction actually came from. Maybe a memory surfaced that you weren't expecting. Maybe you've been craving home in some form, a specific person, a place, a version of yourself that felt more whole. And there's been an ache to it that's hard to put into words. If any of that has been happening, I want you to know something. You are already inside the energy field of this alignment. Because here's the thing about a Moon-Mars conjunction, especially one happening in Cancer. It does not arrive quietly. It arrives as urgency. It arrives as need. And your body has been feeling it building for days before the exact moment hit. This is the Moon and Mars merging their forces in the most personal, most emotionally sovereign territory in the entire zodiac. And what that does is strip away your defenses, not cruelly, but completely. It reveals exactly what you're protecting, exactly what you've actually been fighting for underneath all the strategy and the careful management and the practiced composure. Exactly what you need right now. Today, in this moment, not eventually, not when it's more convenient, not when you finally feel ready enough. Now. The vision, the wound, and the fire. Understanding this week's sequence. I want to walk you through what's been building energetically this week, because when I mapped this out, it genuinely gave me chills. This didn't just start today. There's been a sequence unfolding, and once you see it, the whole picture becomes much clearer. In the days leading up to March 30th, the emotional atmosphere has been unusually pressurized, not in an obvious, dramatic way, more like that low hum you feel in the atmosphere before a real storm arrives. Conversations going deeper than expected, feelings surfacing without much warning. A general undercurrent of something is about to break open, though you couldn't quite say what. That has been the Moon moving through Cancer, building charge as it slowly approached the exact degree of Mars. The closer the Moon got to that 15-degree point, the more intense the emotional field became. And by the time we hit today, the exact conjunction, what had been a hum became a signal, clear, direct, impossible to dismiss. 15 degrees Cancer is not a random point. It is the heart of the sign, not the opening degrees where Cancer is still finding its footing, not the final degrees where the energy is beginning to exhaust itself. The exact center, the place where Cancer's deepest themes are most concentrated and most fully expressed. Emotional truth, the need for protection, the fierce and tender instinct to defend what matters most, the courage to be fully known by someone else. And Mars meeting the Moon at that exact degree means this. What you feel right now is not abstract. It has direction. It has force behind it. It wants to move somewhere. It is asking you, directly, personally, without room for evasion, what do you do with this? Do you act on it, or do you swallow it down again? Let me tell you what this actually feels like in the body, because I think there's a persistent misconception that emotional transits are always soft, always introspective, always manageable. Sometimes they are, but not this one. A Moon-Mars conjunction in Cancer feels like a wave you didn't fully see coming. You might feel a surge of love so concentrated it almost physically hurts. You might feel a flash of anger that arrives with a startling clarity, the kind where you suddenly understand exactly why you've been quietly furious for months without knowing it. You might feel a protective instinct activate with a force that genuinely surprises you. Someone says one thing about someone you care about, and suddenly, completely, you are done being polite about it. That is Mars in Cancer. That is the warrior living in the water. It doesn't charge out into open territory with flags flying. It fights from within the boundary of what it loves. It is the most personal kind of combat, not driven by ego, but by soul. It fights for belonging. It fights for emotional honesty. It fights because something inside it has finally decided, quietly and completely, that the cost of silence has become higher than the cost of truth. And today, with the moon amplifying every single frequency of that energy, that fight has reached its most concentrated possible point. Today is not the day to push feelings downward. They will not stay down. They will return with more force, now. The shadow side, you cannot skip around. Okay, I want to be genuinely real with you about something here, because as powerful and even transformative as this transit can be, the Moon-Mars conjunction in Cancer does not arrive without a shadow. And I think it's actually essential that you understand what that shadow looks like before it catches you somewhere you weren't expecting. Mars in Cancer can express itself as moodiness that suddenly tips sideways into something larger, as passive aggression that finally drops the passive part, as emotional reactivity that feels justified in the moment but leaves damage behind it. The Mars energy wants to act, wants to push, wants to break through whatever is blocking it. But Cancer's instinct is to protect, to retreat, to keep things held close and safe and controlled. That conflict between action and protection, between exposure and defense, between saying the true thing and guarding the tender thing, creates enormous internal pressure. If you've been snapping at the people who are closest to you today, if you found yourself crying about something that seems small on the surface, but somehow clearly wasn't, if you've been replaying old wounds as though they're actively happening right now instead of years behind you, that is not weakness, and it is not overreacting. That is the shadow of this alignment moving through your system. It's asking you to actually feel the thing you've been too afraid to approach directly. The shadow of Moon-Mars in Cancer can also look like using emotional intensity as a form of control without fully realizing that's what you're doing. Holding love at arm's length as a protective strategy, retreating so completely into yourself that you actually create the isolation you're most afraid of. Being so convinced that vulnerability means danger that you strike out before anyone has the chance to get close enough to hurt you. I say all of this not as a warning to fear the transit, but because recognizing the shadow is what gives you actual power over it. The same force that can produce an emotional explosion is the exact same force that can produce an emotional breakthrough. The difference is entirely in how conscious you are when it moves through you. Today, you are not your reactions. You are the awareness that exists behind them. What to pay attention to as this moment unfolds. Here's what I really want you to watch for. In the hours ahead and into tonight, as the conjunction's energy peaks and then slowly begins to integrate, pay attention to what makes you feel protective today. Not defensive, protective. There is a real difference between those two things. Defensive is about guarding the ego from being exposed. Protective is about standing in front of something you genuinely love and refusing to let harm reach it. If you notice a surge of protectiveness today, over a specific person, over a dream you've been carrying quietly, over a version of yourself you've been slowly and carefully reclaiming, pay attention to that. That is the Moon and Mars together, pointing directly at what actually matters to you right now. That is important information. Do not brush past it. Pay attention to what makes you truly angry today. Not surface irritation, not traffic level frustration, the kind of anger that feels old, the kind that has roots. Because Moon-Mars in Cancer has a particular gift for stirring up anger that's been sitting in storage for a long time. Anger about emotional needs that went unmet and were never acknowledged. Anger about having to be the strong one when what you actually needed was to be held. Anger about love that came with conditions when it should have been given freely. That anger is not something to suppress or apologize for today. It is something to witness. Give it a name. Let it be real inside you. And then ask it, what are you protecting? What have you been guarding this whole time? Pay attention to any impulse to reach towards something, towards someone you've been missing, toward a version of yourself you've been slowly losing contact with, toward a conversation you've been circling without landing. That impulse is not random today. Mars in Cancer moves toward what it loves. It crosses distance for what it cannot stop thinking about. If you feel called today to close a gap, emotional, physical, relational, this energy is actively supporting that movement. Don't overthink it. The window is open right now, and pay attention to your body. Cancer rules the chest and the stomach, the places where emotion actually lives in physical form. If you feel tightness there today, if something is sitting in your body and not quite moving through, that is your invitation. Breathe into it. Let it have space. Don't try to think your way around it or rationalize it into something smaller. Let it be felt fully. That is the real work of this transit. That is what it's asking of you. The quiet power that nobody's talking about. So let me talk about something I think most astrology content completely skips over when it comes to a transit like this. Because I think there's a widespread misconception that powerful astrological events have to feel dramatic or overwhelming or externally obvious to be significant. Sometimes they do feel that way. But this one, I believe this one operates differently. Yes, there's intensity. Yes, there's emotional charge. But underneath all of that, if you go quiet enough to feel it, there is something else happening. Something that doesn't announce itself loudly. A kind of quiet, directional clarity about what you actually want. Not what you're supposed to want. Not what makes sense on paper. What you actually, genuinely, in the center of your chest, want. Moon-Mars conjunctions in Cancer have this particular quality. They cut through the noise. All the social performance, all the careful editing of your emotional life for other people's comfort, all the "I'm fine and it doesn't matter and I'll deal with it later." For a brief window, all of that falls away. And what remains is just the truth. Raw. Unmanaged, completely yours. That clarity is a gift, even when it's uncomfortable, even when what becomes clear is inconvenient, even when seeing it plainly means you can no longer pretend you don't see it. What you want matters. What you feel matters. What you need, not someday, not in theory, but right now, matters. And today is the day the universe stops letting you defer that acknowledgement. This is a turning point, not a destination, where this energy actually leads. I think it's really important to understand that today is not a conclusion. It's not the end of something. It's a peak moment inside an ongoing process of emotional recalibration that's been building for longer than just this week. Moon-Mars conjunctions are fierce and they move fast. The moon doesn't linger. By tomorrow, the exact configuration will have shifted and the acute intensity of today will begin to soften. But here's what doesn't disappear. Whatever becomes conscious today, whatever gets said out loud, whatever gets felt fully instead of managed around, that becomes part of your emotional foundation going forward. That becomes something you actually know about yourself instead of something you suspect but avoid confirming. What this transit is asking you to do is both very simple and genuinely difficult. Feel what you actually feel, not what's convenient, not what keeps everyone in your life comfortable and undisturbed, not what's contained and proportionate and easy to explain. What is real? What is yours? What has been waiting underneath the careful daily management of your emotional life for longer than you probably want to admit? Cancer at its highest, most evolved frequency is not weakness. It is the specific kind of courage it takes to be fully known, to say, "This is what I need, this is what I love, this is what I will fight for." Not with armor on, not with strategy in place, not from behind careful distance, but with your actual heart visible. That is not vulnerability as weakness. That is vulnerability as power, as the most honest form of strength that exists. Mars at its highest frequency is not destruction or aggression or conflict for its own sake. It is the willingness to move, to cross whatever distance exists between where you are and where you need to be, to act on what matters before the window closes and the moment becomes a memory of the thing you almost did. And today, right now, they are one. At 15 degrees Cancer, at the exact center of the sign that understands better than any other how to hold something precious and absolutely refuse to let it go. That is what is available to you today, that exact combination of emotional truth and the willingness to act on it. Not someday, today. The confirmations are already arriving. Pay attention. Here's what I really want you to watch for as today unfolds and into the evening hours. I believe you're either already receiving or about to receive a confirmation of something you've been needing to know. It might not look dramatic. In fact, it probably won't. It might be a conversation that cuts to the center of something in a way you didn't expect. It might be a moment of sudden clarity about a relationship or a situation that's been confusing you. It might be someone reaching out at a moment that feels too specific to be random. It might be a feeling in your body, a release, an opening, a softening, that signals something has shifted. When those moments arrive today, I want you to receive them consciously. Don't rationalize them away. Don't immediately start managing them or packaging them into something smaller. Let them land. Let them mean something. Because I genuinely believe they are the emotional truth of this alignment making itself known in your actual life. They are the Moon and Mars at 15 degrees Cancer, doing exactly what they came here to do. And if today brings difficulty instead of clarity, if something ruptures, if something painful surfaces that you weren't prepared for, I want you to know that is also this transit working. Sometimes the Moon-Mars conjunction in Cancer doesn't bring breakthrough by opening a door gently. Sometimes it kicks it down, and what floods in is something that needed to be let in for a very long time. Either way, today matters. This moment matters. What you feel right now is real, and it is worth your full attention. Don't let it pass you by on autopilot. All right, if you've stayed with me all the way through this, genuinely, thank you. I know this is a lot to sit with, and I don't take it lightly that you gave me your time and your attention today of all days. If this resonated with you, if something in here cracked open a feeling or a recognition or a moment of yes, that's exactly it. I'd really love it if you subscribed. Not because of metrics or algorithms, but because this is an ongoing conversation, and I want you here for what comes next. And please drop something in the comments. Tell me what today is bringing up for you. What are you protecting right now? What have you been too afraid to say? What does this Moon-Mars conjunction feel like in your body, in your life, in the specific circumstances you're navigating? I read every single comment, and I mean that. I think we are genuinely all moving through this together. Today is not just another Monday. Today, the Moon meets Mars at the heart of Cancer and asks you directly, what do you love enough to fight for? What are you willing to feel fully right now without flinching away from it? Don't let the moment pass without answering that question. Take care of yourself. Trust what you feel, and I'll see you in the next one.